Project 571, genetically engineered vampire created to destroy evil.
What do you want?
We need your help to kill a vampire.
Malleus Maleficario. It was written by a witch. The first witch. Titania.
That was a little snippet from The Witch's Hammer, the first film I ever solo directed, and it's just been remastered and re-released on Amazon. So if you like witches and vampires, then please do check it out. Anyway, let's get on with this week's episode. You've mentioned the making ofs. I looked through a couple of making ofs. Event Horizon was on there, which I love as a movie. So first of all, do you like that movie?
Oh God, I love it. Yeah,
love
absolutely.
it. Perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cut you off. We're on the same page. I'm not ending the call. Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast. This week, I'm joined by filmmaker Rob Hollocks. Hi, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Jim. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well, thank you. Thanks for joining me. So I thought for this episode, one of the things I noticed, obviously you've got your IMDb, which has got features, shorts, making ofs, all sorts of stuff on there. All sorts. And I think the thing that I've found, or that does tend to happen, is some filmmakers never get past that first film. So I'm going to structure my questions around that a little bit, because I think that is that can be a big hurdle, whether that be your first short film or your first feature film. You don't get past it, whereas you have. So start us off. Tell us a little bit about what made you want to work in film and the beginning of that journey for you.
Yeah, well, for me, I've always loved film, even from like an early age, little kid. I mean, one of my earliest memories was my mum and dad liked horror movies. They used to watch all the old horror movies, and I was never allowed to watch them. And so, yeah, I'd sort of, come down for breakfast the morning after, and my mum would just be like, well, Dracula was on night, and it started like this, and there was a stagecoach, and I would just be like, just carried away by it. And I sort of always loved horror films as well as mainstream movies as well. And at the time I was living in the UK, and I did the usual thing, and I thought, there's no way I'm ever going to get to make films. So I ended up sort of getting film adjacent. I was lucky enough that I saw a job working for Paramount, and joined them, and then sort of got close to it, and then eventually moved over to the US when the offices moved over to the studios, and sort of gradually just sort of inched closer and closer to it over a period of time. I started getting involved in a lot of behind the scenes documentaries and special features, and that was a lot of fun. And then when I finally left Paramount, I started producing my own content, and that started as sort of a small company. We do viral videos and online pieces right at the start of that sort of world when that first started going. And from that, I moved from documentaries and behind the scenes to more and more original stuff and narrative stuff, and sort of that way went through short film, and then finally ended up being able to do my first feature, which was just fantastic. And I've done sort of 3 features now with another one. Hopefully a couple more to go.
Let's hope so. No, that sounds great. And that does highlight that not every career path is the same, and that there are sideways into the industry. So I've just got to ask you, when you've mentioned the making ofs, I looked through a couple of making ofs. Event Horizon was on there, which I love as a movie. So first of all, do you like that movie?
Oh God, I love it. Yeah,
love
absolutely.
it. Perfect. Okay, good. I'm not going to cut you off. We're on the same page. I'm not ending the call. But I guess when you're doing the making ofs, are you aware the film's good, or are you just kind of doing it? Are you a movie fan doing a making of, or how's it feel when you're actually making one?
I've always been a movie fan, and always trying to find the good in all the stuff I've worked on. I mean, it's not always been easy, but I've been lucky, and I worked on some really fantastic movies, and I count Event Horizon one of those. Once Upon a Time in the West, the restored edition. Was lucky enough to work on restored versions of Zulu and The Italian Job, and even What a Lovely War, which I'd never even heard of until I started to work on it and stuff. So, I've been lucky that I got to work on some really cool projects. But Event Horizon was, just brilliant. It was sort of a fanboy dream working on that movie.
Yeah, no, it's a great film. So, so you've made short films. You've gone on to a feature. What would you say to somebody who is about to make the first short film, for example? What advice would you give them?
Oh wow, okay, that's an interesting one. I think for me, it's about there's two parts to it. I think I've been lucky in that because I was involved on the business side at the studios. I've got this kind of thing where I work on. I've got an understanding of how the business works as well as the creative side, and I know that's tough and it's rare to get that combination. So I know that put me in a very fortunate position. So there's sort of two sides to it. From a creative point of view, I'd sort of go into it thinking, know exactly what you want to achieve. It's like I treat it like a feature film, to be honest with you. I mean, give it the same level of attention and seriousness. Do as much planning as you can. Figure it all out beforehand. Work with good people who are, you know, when you're making your first film, you're doing it for nothing and you're calling in favors, and try and work with people who are equally passionate, equally care about the quality of what you're trying to do, and surround yourself with good people. So that's sort of the creative side. And then on the business side, was have a plan. What do you want to do with it? Are you just making it for fun? Which is okay. There's no problem with that. But if you want to use it to try and springboard a career, what are you going to do with it? Is it going to be something that's a proof of concept for a bigger idea that you have? Is it something that you can think you can get into some festivals and get some recognition that way? So try and have a plan behind it. And one of the things I've done with approaching my sort of independent film stuff is never treat it in isolation. Whenever I go into a movie, I always have something else lined up behind it, or I know what I want to do next, or even better, have 3 or 4 different things that you can get out there, have a bunch of material ready, so that you're never caught on the hop. Because if someone sees it and likes it, you need to be ready to go, well, I've also got this one, or this one, or this one, and that kind of thing. So, one of the things for me that's always worked is just planning from the creative side and also the business side as well.
Yeah, that business side is tough though, because it's kind of you're not lucky because obviously you've worked hard and got those jobs, but having that background in the business is something that a lot of filmmakers do not have, and it's really hard to get access to. And I imagine you've probably picked up just the language people use in those environments that make people know you're a professional and that you're not just out there shooting any old rubbish. So it is a tough one, that business. Is there any are there any mistakes you think people make early on that you've seen?
Yeah, well, that I made, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think to me, a lot of it is about not understanding what they're getting into at the upfront, at the beginning. To me, one of the best things I did was that I was lucky that I worked at a studio, so I got to spend time on sets and see big productions going off. Nothing anywhere near that I could ever do, but so there was being able to sit on the set and watch that happening and see how people treated each other and stuff. And then the other part of it was really asking a lot of questions and just reaching out to people. And one of the things I found is the independent filmmaker group pool, whatever you want to call it, community, is really generally really helpful. Most people want to try and help other filmmakers succeed. And I think I'd say to people, never be afraid to reach out to someone. The worst they can do is say, no, I can't, or I'm busy, or whatever. But in my experience, if you reach out to someone, it's genuine, and they'll try and have a chat with you, tell you what to look at, and you can get some really good sort of benefits and experience from that as well. And I think that's one of the things I like about independent film as opposed to studio filmmaking, is that the people in it are a lot nicer. Really.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I worked on films where you'd walk on the set, people are screaming and shouting at each other and all that sort of stuff. I always sort of say one of the things about it is it taught me how not to treat people, really.
Yeah.
Whereas, my first indie film, I'd got to the point where I was kind of ready to quit the industry because I found it so frustrating and all the rest of it in the studio side. And more and more people coming in who didn't really care about film. They're just there as a business, it's this, that, and the other. And I found it very disillusioning, and was ready to quit. And then a friend of mine was directing a movie called Encounter. It's a little independent film with Luke Hemsworth in it. And he said, oh, can you produce it? And I was like, kind of done, kind of on. He said, no, come down. Anyway, I got involved and I went down there and we filmed it in Georgia. I remember walking on the set and everybody's having a great time and everybody was really enjoying what they were doing. The actors were great. Everybody's hanging out. It was just such a fantastic experience. And I was like, oh, I want some of this. This is really different to what I've done before. And so that's what we've tried to do with our projects as well. And, and one of the things we always encourage is that whenever we've shot, all the stuff we've shot so far has been down in Georgia. is that we reach out to the local film schools down there and ask if they want to bring people in. We'll take people on as as paid interns and everything. We try and pay everybody a decent wage, even if it's not as much as they get on a big movie, and just try and bring new people into the business and try and encourage them the way that I would want to be encouraged if I was starting out in this industry. And even if you don't have any experience in film, people just want to try stuff. We'd bring them in and they'd come and help the lighting team, or they'd be in, the sets or props or whatever and stuff. And so I think that's one of the great things about independent film. If you're with the right people, it can be a really nice experience for people, and a great way to bring those people in who maybe don't have the formal training for it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's something to be said for, like, the last feature film we did, we had a load of students involved in it, and there is something to be said. It's like your first time at Disney or something, your first time on a movie set.
Yeah.
Sort of it can be a magical experience. So you sort of feed off of that bit when you see someone who's not been on a set before and they've not seen, good actors going at it, at a script and stuff. So it's lovely to see that. So you made short films. At what point did you decide, right, I'm going to make a feature film? And was that a big psychological jump for you, or was that always on the cards?
It was. I always hoped it would be on the cards, and I think the two short films that we made, or two of the short films that we made, were both excerpts from bigger stories. They were the things where I approached them. Let's see if we can make this work. They were difficult scenes, and if we can do them as almost like a proof of concept, then we know we can make it, and then also potentially we have something to show to people who might put some money up and all that sort of thing. So I had a plan in mind for it, and then it was interesting. One of the shorts we did, called The Habitation, was about a cult, and it was a scene. It was just a scene from the movie about this. At the time, this guy who'd been in a car accident. He was in a coma for 5 years, and he'd been to see someone else whose wife had fallen under the cult thing. And we filmed this there, and it was great. And we ended up making, this is the last film we just made, The Observance. So that was like 7 years ago. We finally made it as a movie. Completely different. The lead character is now female. The guy in the house is a farmer. The whole bunch of changes. But it was funny sort of filming that for real. And so, again, it was just hoping, have everything ready. I mean, we'd written both these two features as scripts. We had full scripts from before we went into it. And it's like, if it works, great, just be ready. And if it doesn't work, okay, you've got a script that you may or may not be able to get to at some point in the future. And I think for me, and for other younger filmmakers trying to get into the business, not young anymore, but it was kind of this whole thing about, just have stuff ready. Nothing's ever wasted. If you write a great script and you don't use it, you don't use it. You can use parts of it for some other story. And, I think there's always that thing where people feel like, I've got to give it my all. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And sometimes you fail and you stuff and people don't like what you do and all the rest of it, but you've got to keep going. And I think, just have all that stuff around you, have those materials around you, have those people around you who can help support you and keep you going. So you don't feel like walking away at the first rejection or first failure, because there'll be a lot of them.
Oh boy, will there. And the thing is, it's a really tough, I've been in this position myself a couple of times, you make a feature film, especially the first one, you put your heart and soul into it, then either you get rinsed, this happens to a lot of filmmakers, you get rinsed by sales agents, chonky distributors, all this kind of stuff. And it is really disheartening, because once you've done one, you realize how much effort you have to put into one. It's not something you can just piecemeal together. It's like a full-on commitment. And if you don't make money out of it, or you don't, sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's not about the money. Sometimes you just want to see it released, and you can't even get that. So it is disheartening. But like you say, it's knowing. Oh, sorry about that. It's knowing that you've got to just keep going. You've got to keep making this stuff, and kind of remembering why you love doing it in the first place.
Yeah, definitely.
He says,
definitely, whatever you can, and and just if you've got a side hustle going, you've got a day job and all that, keep that going and stuff as long as you can. And it's hard. I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, the other side of it is not just making the film; it's getting it out there. And you're right. There's a lot of really unscrupulous sales agents out there who'll take your work and they'll make money off it, but you won't never see a penny for it and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I think one of the exciting things for me right now is that landscape's changing a bit.
Hmm.
There's a lot of opportunities to self-distribute now as well. This film, The Observance, this cult thriller thing that we just did, we distributed that ourselves in the US theatrically. We did a direct deal with a theatrical distributor, which was not as hard as you think, to be honest with you. I mean, have to have some money for marketing and all that kind of stuff and prove you can support it. But actually being able to go directly to a distributor as opposed to a sales agent was it was a shock, but also such a great thing to do because you have complete control over what's happening.
Yeah. And do they, just so I can drill into how that works, because people would be super interested in that. So are you convincing them that it's going to make money? Excuse me. Is that the first thing you've got to do is go, this film's going to make money? And then the second part of that question is, are you on the hook for any money? So if it doesn't sell, how's it work?
No is the answer to that. I mean, it's the second part. First part, I think it's not so much convincing them it makes money, it's if they like it.
Yeah.
I was able to send it to them and say, look, we've got this film, we're doing this, here's a clip, here's a finished screener. We also put together a marketing campaign behind it as well. So we went out there and, my background's in marketing, so that helped. But, it's not like we could afford to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on TV advertising, but we had a good PR campaign. We're able to do a lot of online advertising, which is really cheap now compared to what it used to be like. Social media, all that kind of stuff. So we pushed it that way and we set our expectations realistically. Look, we knew we weren't going to go in there and make like $20 million or something like that, and so we knew we weren't going to make a ton of stuff. But I think my guidance would be if you approach them and you've got a good package laid out well, that, okay, here's the film, here's how we're going to promote it, and they like the film. That's the other big thing. Is that generally they'll be like, okay, we'll give it a go. If you're willing to work with them, if you've made a horror film, don't expect it to go out on the 31st of October. It's like wherever they have a gap, a smaller independent movie. And no, the other big thing about it is you're not on the hook. I mean, you have to spend money in terms of providing prints for theaters, posters, and sort of the marketing stuff. But compared to what that was like, 10 years ago when there were prints and bloody all that stuff, now it's so much cheaper to do it all digitally. It's really relatively inexpensive. And the deal is a straight revenue split. So basically you get a percentage, they get a percentage, and that's it. Yeah. There's no other marketing fees, extra fees you pay to the distributor, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really clean way to sort of get stuff out there. And again, ours did pretty well for us. We're really happy with how it performed. But more importantly, it then sets you up for a much better opportunity at a streaming deal further down the line then as well. Yeah.
That's interesting, actually. And I guess the great thing about that is that every ticket you sell, you're going to get half of that money in.
Yeah.
And okay, so putting your marketing hat on at the moment, give me some advice for filmmakers for marketing their film, because that's a really tough part, getting people to actually watch it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is really, make sure you know what it is you've got, what you're trying to sell, what audience is looking for it. And again, you can do so much now about finding out who those audiences are and all that kind of stuff online. And do that sort of market research first. So you've got to have an understanding of who it is you want to talk to, what the age is it male bias, is it female bias, is it even, that kind of thing. And then I'd recommend spending a lot of time online looking at things like Facebook ads, YouTube ads particularly, and understanding how they work and how you can get the most out of them and stuff as well. And there's a bunch of really fantastic online tutorials now that show you how to do. That's the great thing. It's all out there. It's finding it. If you could spend a week or two researching this stuff and putting it together, it'll tell you what to do, what not to do, and everything. And I think the key is understand the film you've got, understand who it's going to appeal to, and make sure that every penny you spend is just focused on talking to those people. Don't think, it's a family audience. It's going to, who is it? If it's going to be 8 to 34-year-old men, focus your ad dollars on that. You could do that. If it's going to be a female audience, focus on that. But just keep everything niche and focused. And I think that's, take all the guesswork out of it and don't just try and scattergun. And the issue with some of the advertising, you go on there and they'll say, if you spend another $100 a week, we'll put it to these people. Don't do any of that. Stay focused on everything. And I think that's the key behind it, developing your marketing plan.
Yeah, that's good advice. But with that in mind, the funny thing is, I looked at your filmography and I looked at the one before this, and I'm Mr.
Mr. Sleep.
Mr. Sleep now. So I'm a horror filmmaker. Mr. Sleep, I'm like, right, that's got to be a horror. I can tell by the poster. Observance, I'm getting the name right, aren't I? Because I haven't had a chance to
Yeah,
watch it,
right.
and I'm looking forward to watching it because it looks quality.
Thank you.
Observance to me, I would think, oh, that might be a tough sell because it's kind of mixture of religious cult kind of stuff. Is it a horror? Is it a thriller? So is it a tough sell, or have you where do you position a film like that?
Yeah, for me, it's probably I would call it a psychological horror. It's not full on gore, but it's
Yeah.
definitely a bit of a one of those things. And but in the marketing, we focused it as horror. We focused it as a horror thriller. That's how we marketed it, and we went after that sort of 1834 audience. It ended up skewing a lot older. What we found was a lot of older people got into it. So people in their 40s and 50s responded to the material.
Yeah.
So halfway through, we kind of started including them people in. They were the ones who were following and sharing and kind of making positive comments about it and stuff as well. But yeah, it was a slightly harder sell than Mr. Sleep, which is really a straightforward slasher movie. I made that as a kind of a homage to Halloween and Friday the 13th, that kind of stuff. So, but this was a little bit more of an ambitious project, really. But yeah, definitely, if you've got an option of marketing something as a thriller, a horror, psychological thriller, horrors are in right now. So that's really the way, at least start. They start to see what happens with it, focus on that. Because it is, it's a pretty horrific subject and stuff as well, but it's more of a, it's funny, that's our thing. When we did the rating for it here, it got an R rating, which I was really surprised about. And I was I ended up calling the MPA and said, you sure it's an R rating? She went, well, we've got 3 people committing suicide in this film. And I'm like, yeah, okay, good point, yeah.
Yeah, there's weird lines, isn't there, of things that kind of cross that over and push you up a rating.
Yeah.
And it can, sometimes it seems weird. Maybe that's because we're filmmakers and you're kind of putting things in for drama and for the story. You're not thinking about how it's going to affect people. What I was going to say was another thing I noticed on your trailer was boom, tons and tons of festival laurels. So how do you get into them? Tell us the secret. Do you know someone at all the festivals? How do we do it? Because it's impossible.
I mean, it was learning. I mean, we all the films we've done, Applewood, Mr. Sleep, and this one, The Observance, we've tried to get festival views for all of them, and we didn't do very well with Applewood. We got a couple on Mr. Sleep, but this one just seemed to work really well. And it was again trying to be really smart about who we targeted. We're not, we're low budget movie, independent film. We're not getting to some of them big festivals and all the rest of it. So there's no point wasting your money on those. But there are a lot of smaller independent festivals around that sort of, like stuff like that. And the first one we did was the Cleveland Horror Hotel Festival. And they were fantastic. They saw it and they said, yeah, we want to put it in. And we went down there and, I'd sort of recommend as well, if you can, try and get to as many as you can. Because, it's not just because it's showing face is a good thing, but also it's a chance to meet other filmmakers, talk to the festival owners and all sorts of stuff. And, I ended up doing a couple of panels that were really cool. And, but no, it sort of gathered momentum after the first 3. It just seemed to keep hitting and we did really well with it. And also, I wouldn't isolate yourself to the UK or the US. Look at international festivals as well. Like we won a couple of awards at the Tokyo Horror Film Festival. We won a couple of the Berlin Independent Film Festival. And that's when we sort of realized we got something a little bit different here. That's another big plus with the theatrical release, is that we were able to go and say, hey, look, we've won at that time. We've got 10 awards here, including Best Film, Best Actor, Best Actress, Director, all that kind of stuff. And that helps as well. It's like an outside endorsement for it.
Yeah.
So I think the thing with festivals is like, just plug away. And again, it's like marketing. Focus on the ones you think you'll have the best chance of getting into. And don't try and get it into Sundance and all that kind of stuff if it's your first film. Because unless you're, I don't know, unless you're very, very lucky, you just won't even look at it.
Or if you're related to someone very famous.
Or that always helps as well, yeah.
And just stick them in the film, you'll get in. No, you might not get in, but it doesn't hurt. What was I going to ask you? I was going to say, so when and where can people see the film?
Observance actually, it's going out in the UK on the 28th of August. It'll be
Oh,
on,
lovely.
TVOD, so, the prepaid
Yeah.
rental will buy. And then it will probably be out on just general release November sometime. I think we haven't got the exact date for that. But actually, the pre-sale started today. So
Oh, okay, cool.
up on Apple today. So.
Yeah. Oh, exciting times. So then, wind it right the way back. Thinking of your first feature film, what do you wish you'd known when you started making films yourself?
Yeah, I think I wish I'd known how hard it was to get distribution, that back end stuff.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest things was that, it's such a great achievement for anybody to get a film made, it's a big deal. And then you finish it and you're like, oh, well, what now? And then you end up dealing with sales agents and stuff. And some of them are fantastic and a lot of them aren't. And, it's so easy to get rinsed and, it's not fun. So I wish I'd known more about that going into it. I kind of learned that over the last 3 films, how to kind of work better with some of these people, and also whether or not we should have just done it ourselves from the outset,
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing. But in terms of the filmmaking process itself, the big thing for me was no matter how much planning and preparation I've done, you could always do more. Do you know what I mean? And it's like that whole thing about if you can go in there and you've got a shot list and a storyboard, and even if your storyboard's pencil figures, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be anything. Not like you don't have to be like Ridley Scott and these diagrams and everything, but just have a good plan, have a great cinematographer. You figure as much out as you can beforehand. So when you get on the set, you know exactly what shots you need, what angles you want and stuff. And then that gives you a bit more time to play around a bit. I mean, if you can get the essentials and you're buttoned up, you're not spending 3 hours trying to figure out how to light the set and all that kind of stuff, then it gives you much more freedom to move quickly and do more fun stuff, explore some different things with the actors, try some alternative takes. So it sounds really boring, I know, but it's prep for me.